All right, so we're going to talk about the absolute monarchs now, and we're going to go back to this question. So, what historical circumstances led to the Enlightenment? So, this is where we're going to start answering those questions. All right, so we're going to talk about the power of the absolute monarchs. So, how did the power of the absolute monarchs lead to the Enlightenment? All right, let's do green for this one, or like kind of a green blue. All right, so we've seen this picture a few times. Characteristics of an autocrat, right? So they basically rule everything. Okay, we know that at this point. Monarchs rule all. Okay, rule all. All right. In the 1500s, 1600s, and 1700s, some monarchs in Europe became very wealthy. As a result, they were able to pay for large, powerful armies and expand their land. These kings and queens were known as absolute monarchs. Most of the countries in Europe were ruled by absolute monarchs in the 17th and 18th centuries. Louis XIV of France and Peter the Great of Russia were examples of absolute monarchs. Many absolute monarchs consolidated and maintained their power by punishing those who opposed them and questioned their right to rule. Okay, so this part just kind of tells us what they are and maybe some more important ones. This section here is how we're going to answer the question. They consolidated or kind of kept all their power to themselves, and they punished anybody who went against them. All right. So, how would that idea lead to the Enlightenment? All right. We're going to go over to the next slide now. This is actually a pretty quick assignment. So, we're going to go to the next one. There's only 4 of these. All right. So, the scientific Reformation and the scientific revolution influence, okay? Or I'm sorry, the Protestant Reformation, scientific revolution influence. Okay, so here's our guy, Martin Luther. We'll go blue with here. We'll go blue. So here's our guy, Martin Luther and Isaac Newton, okay? All right. So Martin Luther's actions in the Protestant Reformation challenged the Catholic Church hold on power by translating the Bible into common languages and encouraging people to read it for themselves instead of having priests translate it for them. Isaac Newton and other scientists use observations and reason to explain the true nature of the world, which often proved the Catholic Church's claims to be wrong. All right, so how did this Protestant Reformation and scientific revolution influence the Enlightenment? Well, what are people starting to question? They're starting to question the church, all right? They're starting to use reason. All right. So use these ideas that I'm jotting down here to answer the question of how did the Protestant Reformation and the scientific revolution influence the Enlightenment? Let's go to the next slide. Done with this guy. All right. So literacy. So this is a graph, okay? And it's kind of tough to see, but it shows you that in 1640, okay, kind of at the beginning of when the Enlightenment started, this is where this is what the literacy rate was, and you could see that it was pretty much there wasn't a lot of literacy going on here. But then at 1640, what happened around 1640? People started getting books more, okay? But at 1640, the literacy rate started to skyrocket, and the publications in English started to go up really, really high, okay? So the colors here, the green is published outside of the British Isles in English. The red is published on the British Isles without London, and the blue is the London's publisher. So these are where all these places, all these books were produced, okay? All right, so Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press around 1440. We know that. The invention made it easier and less expensive to produce books. We know that. Okay. It was very important in spreading Martin Luther's ideas during the Protestant Reformation. We know all those things. Those are things we've gone over the last few weeks, and even when we were still in school. Okay. During the Enlightenment, book production increased even more, and literacy rates, so literacy, the ability to read and write, in literacy rates, the percentage of people who are able to read also increased. Okay, so if more people are reading, what does that mean? More people are going to be educated, right? And if more people are educated, they're going to be using reason more than just believing blindly what the church and monarchs say. Okay, so how does the increase in book production and literacy lead to the Enlightenment? Well, you kind of have your answer here, but you got to put it in a little bit of a better way. But essentially, there it is. More people are reading, which means they're being educated more, which means they're probably going to be using reason more when they're thinking about these things.